other red flags. He was married twice before me. My immediate predecessor was a Turkish woman called Zerrin, and they had a son together. He said, by way of explanation about why he had got divorced, she threw plates at me. Why? It seemed impossible to understand, and she had initiated divorce proceedings. He was in a dire financial position after the second divorce. So why did I marry him? Well, I thought he was the one. We fitted well together and socially seemed to have the same aspirations. So this is the wedding photo. I married him on the 12th of September, 1992. He was 56 and I was 37, a huge age difference. And we quickly had 2 children while we were living in a village called Eartham near Chichester. His sexual practices, I'm going to talk about this. I now believe, looking back, that he just wasn't all there when making love. He seemed to be watching himself, not enjoying. He wanted me to put my legs around my ears, which hurt my hips. I extricated myself from that after our daughter, Lucy, the second one, was born. And then he wanted me to be on top, which I also gently refused because I had by then 2 young children to look after, and I could not risk my back. Men get injuries to their backs for the reasons that we all know. I suggested side by side, doggy style, and he reluctantly agreed. These changes occurred over time, of course. He never cross-dressed, he never stole my underwear or my clothes. So I had nothing to go on. He was a fraudster, as I realized during divorce proceedings, which started in 2010. He put in fraudulent planning applications on my house, ones that I had not asked for and didn't need. He put in applications for an extension, which was rejected and then approved on appeal. And then the appeal was rejected, overturned at the High Court in the Strand. I didn't understand why we were going to judicial review, but I must say I'm extremely pleased that my neighbour applied for judicial review and got this overturned, because I never suspected that what he was actually trying to do was to get a slice of the equity in my house with a view to claiming during divorce proceedings that he had added to the value of the house. Oh dear, oh dear. He was infantile in one respect, and on another exercised coercive control. His behavior regressed to a kind of adolescence, especially in the last 4 years. It was like living with someone in a state of civil disobedience and non-cooperation, and that was 24/7 in the last 4 years. He was petulant, capricious, and irresponsible. He started arguments about anything and everything, and then he taunted me when I started to get angry. You need an anger management course. He was, as I said before, angry, surly, lazy, and unsociable, and a very mean contributor to the marriage. He didn't want to spend anything. He was saving everything. He occupied the dining room with his desk and computer and he spent most of his days behind the closed door. He was an early adopter of personal computers in about 1994, and he gave me his cast-off as my first PC. He withdrew from family life. He made no suggestions or decisions for the family. He just refused. And then he accused me of not consulting him. It was extremely disturbing to me. He was a reluctant member of I'll put that in inverted commas, family, because it was me who was the family plus 2 children. Reluctant, rebellious, surly, 3rd child. I put up with his decaying social skills because I had no option. I decided where we were going to live. We moved back to my house in London, which he was very unhappy about. He wanted me to sell my house. I thwarted his plan to dispose of my premarital home, the premarital home. He had a prostate problem, which he had from the very first time that I knew him, actually, given his age. It mysteriously got better as his behavior got worse in the last 4 years. Was he on estrogen by then, rather than finasteride, which was what he declared? But there was an intellectual side that was competent. He was a good architect. I introduced him, in fact, to another architect at our sailing club, and they had success together building the BBC Dream House at the Millennium. If anyone remembers that, it was a very advanced energy-saving house, and it was built on the BRE's own site in Watford. But then, shortly after that, he started to fight with his business partners, and then even with the childhood friends. And then I could see that he was going to turn his rage on me, and he did. I couldn't get through to him. Any questions, he just would not answer. It was like talking to a brick wall. So I, on 2 occasions, took a pair of his glasses, reading glasses, and I broke them in pieces. Don't worry, they were from Primark. They didn't cost anything. On another 2 occasions, I opened his filing cabinet, an old steel filing cabinet, picked out each of the hanging wallets and tipped them on the floor. These actions were not violent. They were not financially of any consequence, but they showed they were extremely annoying to him because he had to put the whole of his filing cabinet back together again. And it took a very long time, but it was an indication of just how enraging his behavior was. On one occasion, I marched him to the hairdressers. He had greasy, bedraggled, mousy hair. And this is the photo of him in 2005, showing how he put on weight and just looked spaced out. It's a poor photo. Unfortunately, it's an ordinary photo of a print. I'm sorry about that. He was getting fat. He smelled vile. And I couldn't bear to share a bed with him. And that was in 2002. Not any explanation and no respite from the tension that he generated. He had apparently no insight. He never apologized. And I had no idea why he was behaving like this. I felt cowed. I felt bewildered, terrified, and very angry. I'd never heard of a man behaving like this. I'd never heard of anyone behaving like this. And then the revelation. In March 2006, so that was 14 years of marriage, I found in the spare bedroom cupboard a Dorothy Perkins dress, which wasn't mine, and a pair of size 9 women's shoes, and a credit card in the name of Elizabeth. Elizabeth is my mother's name. Are they yours? I asked. And then a couple of days later, he said, it's true, I'm a transsexual, still in March 2006. Still no explanation, just those 5 or 6 words. It was like waiting for the sound from an atom bomb, the kind of tension that I felt. In July, so 4 months later, with a fake rage, he walked out of the front door, slamming the door. The day before our son's 12th birthday party, he cut off the landline and then the mobile, and I had sporadic email replies. I was frantic. I still needed to maintain some kind of contact. He reluctantly paid about £1,000 per month into the family budget, and he had done since our son went to school, and it was absolutely essential. He paid our son's school fees, which were nearly £10,000 a year. I couldn't afford to take those on in addition to the daughter's fees, which I paid. I went to see him in October 2007, so that's about 16 months after he left. We, and that's to say me and the 2 children, went to find evidence of women's clothes. And this is how I presented it to the kids, now 13 and 11. This isn't a social visit. We are detectives, and we're here to get evidence. So William did his bit, and went round the house, and eventually we found a cupboard which had a locked padlock on it. And I demanded that Paul open that door. And yes, that's where we found the women's clothes. Laid them out on the bed, took photographs. Paul had talked about a psychiatrist's report about him. So I demanded that. He was extremely reluctant. It took 2 hours of sitting on the sofa and refusing to move before he finally disgorged this document. He wouldn't, he said he didn't have a photocopier. That's okay. The fax machine had run out of paper. That's okay. He tore off the top strip, the address of the addressee of the letter. And I glanced at this and I realized it was incriminating, but I was in such a shocked state. We'd spent 3 hours there. I wanted to go home. I had discovered also a Chinese lamp, adapted Chinese vase from Liberty, which was very expensive. And he told me that he'd thrown it in the river in a fit of rage. That was extremely unlike him. He didn't get in full rage. Anyway, and we also find another item that he'd just taken because he wanted it. He was a thief. Unfortunately, I made a mistake at this point. One of the children wanted a glass of water, so I went to the kitchen and opened the tap, and Paul followed me from the sitting room into the kitchen, and I just thought, I'll try one more time. Please cut your hair. Please cut your hair. And the third time, please cut your hair. And then I saw a small pair of scissors, which by the tap, and I lifted it up, and he flew across the room. I've never seen him move so fast. He grabbed my hand, he pressed it, scraped it against the rough cast wall and the whole of my body. He tore my trousers. I had scrapes which bled, and my trousers were torn. And I said, it's okay, please, please, we're going. Do calm down. I'm going to call the police. I'm going to call the police. Well, he let us leave the house with my Chinese vase and the Aztec blanket and the 2 kids and the photos and the psychiatrist's report. And I was hoping that I would hear nothing more from him. But 3 weeks later, I got a phone call from Sussex Police. We want to talk. We want to have a chat about the incident. I was in such a state and had had no contact ever with the criminal justice system. I asked the police, can I go and see the Metropolitan Police? No, you've got to come to Sussex. What happens if I don't? Then we'll arrest you. This was in early December of that year. So I had to go in early December, and the minute I arrived at Midhurst Police Station, they arrested me. I've had now 2 decades to think about what Sussex Police did to me, the astonishing injury that they did to my reputation. I was absolutely cut to the bone. And when I got indignant, they put me in a cell. And they were holding me hostage. My children were in London, still in school. This was early December. It was school term time. I was supposed to collect them at midday. They told me that the police interview was only going to take two hours. Well, it didn't, because the duty solicitor was not available. They just kept me and kept me. Of course, I completely mishandled this because I'm not a criminal. Guess what? Anyway, I was forced to take a caution. I was forced to confess to a crime I had never committed. He had assaulted me. Of course, in retrospect, I should have said, prove it. I'm going home. I deny everything. But I didn't. So I've now got a record on the criminal police national computer and my DNA there. I'm incensed with them. I keep tweeting to Sussex Police about this. He forfeited any residual respect that I might have had at that moment with that incident. I fought back. I went to see a psychiatrist who happened to be the mother of my son's best friend from nursery school, a lady called Dr. Alice Partial. She was, at that time in 2008, the medical director for mental health services for Northwest London. I asked her, I approached her by email, knowing just how busy she was. I said, Alice, can I come and talk to you about Paul? And she said, yes. And she said, please bring an exchange of emails between you. So I did that, and she glanced at them, and she said, well, you're not mad, are you? Well, that was very good. The first time someone had really bolstered my self-confidence. And then I asked, did you know he was a transsexual? And she said, yes. How? And she said, she thought about that experience. And now I've had 2 decades to think about exactly why she said it slowly and why she chose that. Because she could not explain in a few words the whole of her specialism as a psychiatrist. And then she finally said, psychiatry is in the Stone Age compared to physical medicine. So this is the photo that Paul sent me fairly soon after he left us. The next one of him. I call it the skin walking photo. No, that's not it. No, dragons. Okay. That's the one.
Yeah.
This is the ingenue photo. I don't have many, and it's in a very bad state because when I saw it, I tore it up. I'm sorry. And then there's another photo of him with his friends on children's swings about the same time. Again, I tore them up. Anyway, Alice Partial, in our interview in 2008, said Paul is something of a psychopath. But that didn't really start to make sense until the divorce proceedings started in 2010. I needed to find friends. I have never felt so alone in my life. I'd spent 14 years being gradually subjected to the kind of undermining of my authority as the mother of these 2 kids, as obviously as a wife, and I just never anticipated this. I needed to find friends, and I did find them slowly. Gathering pace with the consultation on gender self-ID in 2018, but you can see how late and how long it took to find those friends. I found feminism, and I distanced myself from Paul. The conclusions that I've come to is that the Gender Recognition Act must be repealed. It has to be removed because it introduces confusion and a logical discontinuity, which is a completely insuperable fault in UK law. Our society is based on the binary nature of sex as a fundamental truth of human existence. It's like breathing or the effect of gravity. If you deny breathing or gravity, you're not here. And the same with denying the importance of sex. Nothing can be introduced into the law of the UK or other countries to disturb this truth. It must be repealed worldwide. Obviously, the PC of gender reassignment must be removed from the Equality Act 2010. We're living in dangerous times when highly educated academics, politicians, and officials are refusing to reject obvious, simple falsehoods. We must reject these falsehoods. Thank you.